The broken latch. The key turned, or rather, it half-turned, grinding against something unseen within the lock. Lily jiggled it, pushed, pulled, but the door remained stubbornly sealed. A wave of heat prickled her skin, a claustrophobic panic blooming in her chest. She was officially locked out, or rather, locked in. Frustration warred with a deeper, more unsettling feeling, vulnerability. This wasn't the bustling city apartment she was used to. This was suburbia, a place of manicured lawns and quiet evenings, a place where everyone knew everyone else, except she didn't know anyone. Not really. She slammed her shoulder against the door, a futile gesture that only made her shoulder ache. The latch, she realized, wasn't catching. It was loose, dangling slightly, refusing to engage with the strike plate. A broken latch. Such a small thing, yet it rendered her home a gilded cage. She considered her options. A locksmith would be expensive, and she hadn't budgeted for unexpected house repairs. Besides, the thought of a stranger fiddling with her door lock sent a shiver down her spine. Then, a face floated into her mind, Tom. Tom Bellwether, her next-door neighbor. He seemed handy, always tending to his garden, fixing things around his porch. He'd even offered to help her assemble her bookshelf when she'd first moved in, an offer she'd politely declined, determined to prove her self-sufficiency. Now her self-sufficiency was mocking her from behind a faulty door. She paced the living room, phone clutched in her hand. Google searches yielded complicated diagrams and jargon-filled instructions. YouTube tutorials showed impossibly confident handymen effortlessly dismantling door handles. She sighed. She could try, but the image of tiny springs and intricate mechanisms scattered across her entryway floor was enough to dissuade her. Tom. She knew so little about him, just that he was retired, that he liked gardening, and that he always seemed to be watching her, not in a creepy way, but with a quiet, observant gaze. Asking for help felt like an admission of weakness, a crack in the carefully constructed facade of the independent woman she wanted to be. But the alternative, spending the night barricaded in her house, listening to every creak and groan, was far less appealing. Taking a deep breath, she walked out of her back door and around to Tom's front porch. His house was almost oppressively neat, the lawn perfectly trimmed, the flower beds bursting with color. She hesitated at the door, her knuckles hovering just above the doorbell. She could still turn back. No. She raised her hand and pressed the bell. The chime echoed inside, a polite, almost apologetic sound. A moment later, the door opened and Tom stood there, a gentle smile spreading across his face. He was wearing a faded blue shirt and worn jeans, his hands calloused but clean. He looked approachable. "Lily, hello," he said, his voice warm and welcoming. "Is everything all right?" She swallowed, the words catching in her throat. "Hi, Tom. Actually, I'm having a little trouble with my front door. The latch seems to be broken, and I can't get it open." She winced, hating the sound of her own voice, small and uncertain. Tom's smile didn't falter. "A broken latch, you say? Let's have a look." His eyes held a glint of something that might have been amusement, but was mostly just kindness. "Lead the way." A helping hand. Tom knelt before the damaged door, his weathered hands gently tracing the splintered wood around the warped frame. The afternoon sun slanted through the doorway, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, and casting long shadows across the worn floorboards. "Looks like the bottom hinge gave way," he murmured, more to himself than to Lily. He ran a finger along the crack that snaked up the door's surface. Storm door probably caught the wind and put too much strain on it. Lily hovered nervously, her arms crossed. She felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension. Relief that someone competent was finally addressing the problem, and apprehension about, well, about a lot of things she couldn't quite articulate. "Can it be fixed?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Tom straightened, a reassuring smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. "Sure can. Just needs a little persuasion." He chuckled softly, a warm, comforting sound that eased some of Lily's tension. Got some seasoned oak in the shed. Stronger than what they used here. We'll replace the damaged section and reinforce the hinges. Good as new, maybe even better. He ambled towards his shed, his gait steady and unhurried. Lily followed, watching as he unlocked the padlock and swung open the creaking door. The shed smelled of sawdust, linseed oil, and something else, something earthy and comforting, like damp soil and old wood. It was a sanctuary of sorts, filled with neatly organized tools and stacks of lumber. Tom began gathering what he needed: a handsaw, a chisel, a small plane, and a handful of screws. "Don't you worry," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the confined space, "this is simpler than it looks." He explained his plan, outlining each step with patient clarity, describing how he would carefully remove the damaged section, shape the new piece of oak to fit perfectly, and then secure it all with screws and wood glue. Lily listened intently, her initial anxiety giving way to a sense of quiet fascination. She'd always admired people who could create and repair things with their hands. Her own talents lay more in the realm of abstract ideas and creative expression, a world of words and colors. Tom's practical skills felt like a grounding force, a connection to something real and tangible. Back at the door, Tom laid out his tools with methodical precision. He worked with a quiet confidence, his movements economical and precise. The rhythmic rasp of the saw, the gentle tap of the chisel, the smooth glide of the plane, each sound was a testament to his skill and experience. Lily watched, mesmerized, as he carefully shaped the new piece of oak, his brow furrowed in concentration. A tiny curl of wood spiraled away from the plane, landing softly on the floor. He paused, holding the piece up to the light, inspecting it with a critical eye. Then, with a satisfied nod, he began applying wood glue to the prepared surfaces. As the new section of oak slid seamlessly into place, Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her. It wasn't just the door that was being fixed, she realized. Something else was being mended too, something within her that had felt broken and insecure for far too long. Tom's presence, his quiet competence, and his genuine kindness were having an unexpected effect. The door, and perhaps Lily herself, was finally starting to feel whole again. Rusty hinges and shared laughter. The salt air had taken its toll on the hinges of the garden shed door. Tom, ever methodical, had been applying penetrating oil for what felt like an eternity. Lily watched, leaning against the weathered brick wall, a faint sheen of sweat on her forehead. The late afternoon sun beat down, turning the small yard into a crucible of humidity. "Stubborn things, aren't they?" Tom grunted, his brow furrowed in concentration. He was using a wrench now, applying slow, deliberate pressure. Lily shifted, the rough brick scratching against her bare arms. "Maybe we should just get new ones," she suggested, though she enjoyed watching him work. The way his muscles flexed under the worn fabric of his shirt was distracting. Tom shook his head. "Waste not, want not, Lily. Besides," he added with a small smile, "I'm almost there." He gave the wrench another, more forceful tug. There was a sharp crack, followed by a metallic ping as the hinge, finally surrendering, snapped clean in two. Tom, caught off balance, stumbled backward, the broken hinge flying from his hand, and landing with a thud in a nearby flower pot, scattering soil and a few unfortunate petunias. He stood there for a moment, dusting off his trousers, a sheepish expression on his face. Lily, after a stunned silence, burst out laughing. It was a genuine, uninhibited laugh that bubbled up from deep within her, a sound she hadn't realized she'd been holding back. Tom's own face broke into a smile, and he joined in her laughter, the sound deep and resonant. The tension that had been simmering between them, a mixture of awkwardness and undeniable attraction, seemed to dissipate in the shared merriment. "Well," he said, wiping a tear from his eye that was decisive. Lily giggled, pointing at the flower pot. "The petunias look a bit shell-shocked." "They do, don't they?" Tom chuckled, walking over to survey the damage. He gently righted the pot, and brushed the soil off the flattened flowers. "Right, new hinges it is then. My treat. And maybe we can get some new flowers too. Something a bit hardier." Lily's laughter subsided, replaced by a warmth that spread through her chest. I'd like that, Tom. I really would. The air still hung heavy with humidity, but now it felt different, lighter, charged with a newfound possibility. Lemonade and stories. The heat was starting to shimmer off the porch steps. Hold on a sec, Lily called, disappearing inside. She squeezed lemons with a vengeance, the tart scent filling the kitchen. She added water, just the right amount of sugar, and a handful of ice. 2 glasses, one chipped blue, the other plain and sturdy, sat on a tray. Tom was examining a patch of petunias when she emerged. Lemonade, she announced, offering him the sturdier glass. Figured you could use something cool. He took it with a grateful smile. Perfect, Lily. Thank you. He took a long swallow. Just what I needed. They sat on the porch swing, its gentle creak a comforting rhythm. So, Lily began, swirling the lemonade in her glass, you mentioned woodworking. What kind of things do you make? Tom's eyes lit up. All sorts. I built a cradle for my niece last year, cherry wood. Beautiful grain. Before that, I restored an old sea chest, inlaid with mother of pearl. That was a challenge. He chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. Nearly drove me mad, matching the missing pieces. Lily leaned forward, captivated. A sea chest. Where did you find something like that? Antique shop down in Charleston. Place was crammed with treasures. The owner told me it belonged to a ship captain, sailed all over the world. I liked to imagine the stories it could tell. He paused, looking out at the overgrown garden. Speaking of sailing, I did a bit of that myself, years ago. Nothing fancy, just bumming around the Caribbean on a friend's boat. The Caribbean? Lily breathed. Wow. I've only ever seen pictures. Turquoise water, white sand. Sunsets that'll take your breath away. We even got caught in a squall once. That wasn't quite so picturesque, I can tell you. He recounted the tale with a wry grin, the boat tossed about like a toy, the frantic bailing, the eventual calm. Lily listened enthralled, picturing it all. It felt a world away from her quiet life here. I always meant to do more traveling, Tom said, his voice softening. But life has a way of getting in the way, doesn't it? Settled down, opened the shop. Never regretted it exactly, but... He trailed off, leaving the thought unfinished. Lily felt a pang of sympathy. She knew that feeling, the pull of something more, the quiet acceptance of the present. It's not too late, she said impulsively. He smiled, a sad kind of smile. Maybe not. He finished his lemonade, setting the glass on the porch floor. Thank you, Lily. For the drink and the company. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the yard. The air cooled, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the old oak tree. Lily watched Tom, a craftsman with sawdust in his hair and stories in his heart, and wondered what other secrets he held. The unexpected storm. The wood was more rotten than either of them had anticipated. Tom, usually a picture of calm efficiency, swore under his breath as his screwdriver slipped, gouging a fresh chunk out of the already compromised frame. Damn it, he muttered, wiping his brow with the back of his hand, leaving a smudge of sawdust and grime. Lily, I think we're going to need to replace this entire section. Lily sighed. What she had hoped would be a simple fix was rapidly escalating. Okay, she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Do you have the tools for that? Tom gave her a reassuring smile. I do, back at my place. But it'll take a bit longer. Maybe an hour, give or take. He glanced at the sky, which had been a brilliant, cloudless blue just moments before. Now, ominous gray masses were gathering on the horizon, rolling in with surprising speed. We should probably hurry, Lily said, noticing the sudden drop in temperature. A gust of wind whipped through the yard, scattering leaves and sending a shiver down her spine. They worked in a flurry, Tom carefully removing the damaged section of the door frame while Lily held a flashlight, the encroaching darkness making it difficult to see. Just as Tom pried the last piece free, a fat raindrop splattered on Lily's nose. "That's our cue," Tom shouted over the sudden roar of the wind. He grabbed the toolbox and the new section of wood, gesturing for Lily to follow him. They scrambled to gather the remaining tools and the broken door, rushing towards the shelter of Lily's small cottage. The first heavy drops turned into a deluge, soaking them both in seconds. Laughing, they wrestled the unwieldy door through the narrow doorway, nearly tripping over each other in their haste. Finally, they were inside, dripping and breathless. Lily slammed the door shut against the storm's fury. The sound of the rain drumming against the roof was deafening. "Well," Tom said, shaking his head and grinning, "that was invigorating." He set the wood down with a thump and surveyed the small, cluttered living room, now illuminated only by the soft glow of a lamp. "Looks like we're moving the workshop indoors." Lily ran a hand through her wet hair, pulling it away from her face. Her heart was beating faster than it should have been, and she couldn't tell if it was from the exertion or something else entirely. "I'll get some towels," she said, her voice barely a whisper. The air crackled with an unspoken energy, a palpable shift in the atmosphere. The storm outside had created a strange, unexpected intimacy within the confines of her small cottage. A palpable spark. The downpour had been sudden and merciless. Now back inside Lily's cozy cottage, a damp, earthy scent hung in the air, mingling with the comforting aroma of the chamomile tea she'd brewed. She'd offered Tom a towel, a fluffy, oversized thing, and now watched him awkwardly rub it through his already thinning hair. Water droplets clung to his eyelashes, making them appear darker, more defined. Lily, meanwhile, was furiously drying her own unruly curls. The towel felt rough against her skin, a welcome contrast to the clammy chill that had settled deep in her bones. She shivered, not entirely from the cold. The shared experience of being caught in the rain, the hurried dash for shelter, had created a strange intimacy between them. "Sorry about that," Tom said, his voice slightly muffled by the towel. "Didn't realize it was going to open up like that." "No worries," Lily replied, managing a weak smile. "Welcome to coastal living. Unpredictability is part of the charm, I suppose." She moved closer to the small, crackling fire in the hearth, hoping to absorb some of its warmth. Tom followed suit, standing a little too close, perhaps, but Lily found she didn't mind. He reached for the poker, gently nudging a log back into place. The fire flared, casting dancing shadows on the walls. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the only sound the crackling fire, and the soft patter of rain against the window panes. Lily focused on the rhythmic motion of drying her hands, her gaze fixed on the intricate pattern of the towel. It was her grandmother's, a faded floral print that smelled faintly of lavender. Then, it happened. As she reached for a drier section of the towel, her fingers brushed against Tom's. A jolt, like static electricity, shot up her arm. Her breath caught in her throat. It was a fleeting touch, barely there, but the sensation lingered, a warm, buzzing energy that settled in the pit of her stomach. Tom stiffened beside her. His hand, which had been loosely holding the towel, tightened. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers. Lily saw a flicker of surprise, then something deeper, something that mirrored the confusion and undeniable attraction swirling within her. His cheeks flushed a faint red. "Sorry," she stammered, pulling her hand away as if burned. Didn't mean to." No, Tom said quickly, his voice a little too loud in the small room. He cleared his throat. "My fault. I wasn't paying attention." He busied himself with the towel again, scrubbing his hair with unnecessary force. The air crackled with unspoken tension. Lily felt her own cheeks burning. She looked away, focusing on the flames dancing in the hearth, anything to avoid his gaze. The scent of chamomile, once comforting, now felt cloying, almost suffocating. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. She knew, with a certainty that surprised even her, that this was more than just awkwardness. This was something else entirely. A spark. Palpable and undeniable. And she had no idea what to do with it. Uncertain feelings. The scent of sawdust still clung to the air, a ghost of Tom's industriousness. Lily stared at the now perfectly aligned door, a monument to his competence, and a source of her increasing confusion. Was she misreading everything? His kindness, his easy smile, the way he always seemed to anticipate her needs, was it simply neighborly concern, amplified by her own lonely heart? 60 was a solid age. A respected age. And she, teetering on the edge of 35, felt like a reckless teenager with a crush. He'd mentioned his late wife, Martha, a few times. Always with affection, a quiet reverence that made Lily feel like an intruder on a sacred memory. Could she ever measure up to a love like that? She felt Tom's presence before she saw him. A subtle shift in the air, a warmth radiating from the doorway. He was holding 2 mugs, steam curling upwards like gentle question marks. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, his voice soft, like the brush of velvet. "You seem a million miles away." Lily flushed, taking the offered mug. The ceramic warmed her hands, but did little to thaw the chill in her heart. "Just thinking," she mumbled, avoiding his gaze. The coffee was strong, laced with cinnamon, exactly how she liked it. Did he remember that from their very first awkward conversation? He settled into the armchair opposite her, the springs sighing in protest. "Something's bothering you. I can see it in your eyes." His own eyes, the color of weathered sea glass, held a concern that made her want to confide everything, yet fear stopped her. "It's nothing, really. Just work stress," she lied, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. Tom didn't press, but his silence was more eloquent than any interrogation. He swirled the coffee in his mug, the liquid a dark, swirling mirror reflecting his thoughts. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and tinged with a hint of melancholy. "Martha loved sunflowers," he said, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Used to plant them every spring, a whole row along the back fence. Said they reminded her of sunshine, even on the cloudiest days. One year the squirrels got to the seeds before they could sprout. She was devastated. Absolutely heartbroken. I tried to cheer her up, bought her a bouquet of lilies, your namesake, you see, but it wasn't the same. So the next year, I built a little fence, just high enough to keep the critters out." She watched me, perched on a stool in the garden, humming a little tune. That was Martha." He paused, his gaze distant, lost in the memory. The air in the room thickened with unspoken emotions, with grief and love and the quiet acceptance of loss. Lily felt a strange pang in her chest, a mixture of empathy and something akin to jealousy. He'd loved so deeply. "Sometimes," he continued, his voice barely a whisper, "I still see those sunflowers, swaying in the breeze, even though they've been gone for years." He looked at Lily, his eyes filled with a profound sadness. "Memories are funny things, aren't they? They can keep you warm, but they can also cast a long shadow." Confessions. The last toolbox was stowed in the shed, the scent of sawdust and varnish lingering in the cool evening air. Lily leaned against the doorframe, watching Tom wipe his hands on a rag. The repaired door stood solid and true, a silent testament to their shared effort. "So," she began, the word feeling clumsy in her mouth, "thank you, again, Tom. For everything." He looked up, a genuine smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. "It was my pleasure, Lily." "Really?" The silence stretched, thick with unspoken things. Lily fiddled with the hem of her t-shirt, the fading light painting long shadows across the yard. She took a deep breath. I've really enjoyed spending time with you, Tom. These last few weeks." She rushed the words, hoping he wouldn't hear the tremor in her voice. "More than I thought I would." He stilled, his gaze unwavering. The smile softened, replaced by something deeper, something that made her heart flutter nervously. "Me too, Lily." She risked a glance, searching his face. "Really?" The surprise was evident in her tone, almost childish. He nodded, a faint blush rising on his cheeks. Honestly, Lily, I wasn't expecting this. I mean, he gestured awkwardly with the rag, I thought I was just helping a neighbor. He paused, his eyes locking with hers. But it's been nice having someone to talk to work with. Someone, like you. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't dared to imagine he felt the same pull, the same burgeoning connection. She'd convinced herself it was just wishful thinking, a lonely heart grasping at straws. To hear him say it, to see it reflected in his kind eyes, sent a shiver down her spine. I don't know what to say, she stammered, suddenly feeling incredibly vulnerable. Tom took a step closer, closing the distance between them. The air crackled with an unspoken energy. You don't have to say anything, Lily. Unless you don't feel the same way. His voice was barely a whisper, laced with a hint of uncertainty. The crickets chirped their evening chorus, the only sound breaking the quiet. The scent of honeysuckle drifted on the breeze, sweet and intoxicating. Lily looked up at Tom, his face etched with a hopeful vulnerability that mirrored her own. She knew in that moment that she couldn't deny the truth any longer. The loneliness she had carried for so long was beginning to thaw, warmed by his presence, his kindness, and the undeniable spark that had ignited between them. Dinner and new beginnings. The last screw turned with a satisfying click. Tom stood back, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. There you go, Lily. Good as new. He tested the handle, pushing and pulling the door with a gentle but firm hand. The wood groaned softly, settling into place with a reassuring thud. Lily watched him, a warmth spreading through her that had nothing to do with the afternoon sun streaming through the window. Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it. I was dreading having to call a handyman. He turned, a sheepish grin on his face. Anytime. I enjoy tinkering. Keeps me busy. He paused, his gaze meeting hers, and the air thickened with unspoken words. The comfortable silence stretched between them, filled with the echoes of shared laughter and a budding connection. So Lily began, breaking the quiet, about what I said earlier. She trailed off, suddenly feeling shy. The vulnerability she'd laid bare felt enormous now, exposed in the bright light of day. Tom stepped closer, his voice soft. About feeling a spark. I felt it too, Lily. I wasn't sure if I was just reading things wrong. A wave of relief washed over her. Me neither, she admitted. I didn't want to make things awkward. He chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that resonated within her. Well, we've already managed to break a door and confess our attraction. I think we're past awkward. Lily laughed, the sound lighter now, filled with a nervous excitement. Fair point. She bit her lip, considering her next words. So, where do we go from here? Tom ran a hand through his thinning hair, a thoughtful expression on his face. I don't know, he said honestly. But I'd like to find out. Would you be free for dinner sometime? No pressure, just dinner. Her heart skipped a beat. I'd like that very much, Tom. She smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. How about tonight? His eyes lit up. Tonight? Yes. Tonight would be wonderful. He paused, a flicker of nervousness crossing his face. I could pick you up around 7. Perfect, Lily replied. A sudden thought struck her. My treat. As a thank you for the door and for everything. Tom hesitated, then nodded. All right. But next time, it's on me. He took a step back, as if suddenly aware of the proximity between them. I should probably let you get ready. 7 it is, then. 7 it is, Lily echoed, watching as he turned and walked towards the stairs. The scent of sawdust and something distinctly Tom lingered in the air. As the door closed behind him, Lily leaned against it, a hand pressed to her chest. Dinner. Tonight. A new beginning, perhaps. The possibilities stretched before her, shimmering with an unexpected light. She couldn't wait.